essence with his fingers. A dog, a rabbit, a monster. He needed to rise from the bed and give his soft, jumbled thoughts, and the chaotic emotions that rippled in their wake, a vigorous shake. He needed to be put into order. Life, once it was up and running, tricked him into feeling relatively normal. He stood up, naked. His thoughts swung towards the uncomplicated desire for sex. He moved around to Tiane's side of the bed. His semi-erect cock was level with her open mouth. He stepped forward, closing the distance, so that it almost touched her lips. Tiane began snoring again. Salinger noticed a bubble of spit forming, breaking, then pooling at the corner of her lips. His incipient lust gave way to a faint distaste. He turned away and reached up to a plastic hook on the back of the bedroom door and took down his pale blue waffle cotton dressing gown. The front was stained with egg yolk from the previous day's breakfast. He wrapped it round his torso and secured the belt with an unstable knot, which immediately began to unravel. He looked for his slippers. Unable to find them, he gave up and went barefoot, stubbing his toe immediately on an inch of coir carpet that had for several months protruded between the landing and the bathroom. He cursed the material and tried, as he had dozens of times before, to press it into place with his foot. It sprang back slowly into position, as usual, with practiced insolence. In the bathroom, he stopped to splash his face with cold water and searched the mirror for the remnants of the crust of sleep at the corner of his eyes. The small scar just in front of his right ear, where he had fallen and banged his head on the edge of a glass coffee table as a child, remained faintly visible. His hair looked greasy and thin. His skin, once olive, was becoming sallow. His eyes showed alarm. His brows were reaching out to one another to meet in the middle. He stuck out his tongue. It was as grey and furred as the hindquarters of a stray moggy. He felt perfectly neutral about these observations. He disliked looking in mirrors much less than he once had. Now that he was 40, he reasoned, everyone looked as bad as everyone else. The competitive element of this part of life, at least, had receded. He reached up to the bathroom cabinet and took out his clandestine supply of Prozac, which was concealed inside an empty aspirin box. Tiane believed herself to be allergic to aspirin, so she had no reason to look inside. He did not wish Tiane to know that he was medicated. It was one of the few secrets that he kept from her. She believed that antidepressants chemically generated an inauthentic self. It was when he had heard her casually refer to them as happy pills to a friend that he decided that he could not trust her with the knowledge. They were not happy pills. They did not make him happy. They rendered his life supportable. They fended off madness by reconfiguring synapses. Salinger had given years over to therapy, counseling, and psychoanalysis. When these had proved ineffective, he had consumed self-help books, practiced Kundalini yoga, and feasted on St. John's wort. Still, his moods came in storms, and the sensation that he was tumbling down a cliff leading to a vertiginous precipice never quite left him. It was only the Prozac that worked, except that nowadays it didn't. The violent mood swings he remembered from his teenage years, during the decade after his father, Henry, had abandoned his mother and left the country for good, were beginning to reassert themselves, despite the serotonin jag that the pills were designed to provide. Whether his depression arose out of that desertion, or from some trauma arising from the leukemia he had been born with, and eventually, as an infant, cured of, was another impenetrable conundrum. He swallowed the green and white capsule anyway, and replaced the punctured foil and cellophane pouch. He made his way downstairs. In the hall, the newspapers were spread on the doormat. A left-wing broadsheet for him, and a Middle England tabloid for Tiane. He glanced at the papers as he carried them into the kitchen.